Hi guys, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Today we are going to cover a new chapter, which is on chapter 2 on evolutions of management thoughts. Why do we have to cover this particular chapter? Number one, yes, of course, it is in our syllabus, in our course outline. And number two, this is the basic chapter that would explain why do we have so many different styles of managers and why our managers act differently in different occasions and also in different situations, and why organizations sometimes change the way they manage the organization. So here we are going to discuss in terms of different management thoughts that have been developed since the late 19th century. But first thing first, let us go into the environmental factors that affecting management thought. These are some of the factors from the economical factors up to the global factors. And even now, when we talk about the global and economical, social, political, and technological, no one ever imagined that the whole world could ever work from home all at once. But now, because of the pandemic situation, we still need to keep our economics going. We still need to keep some of our essential services running, and we still need to deliver online teaching like what we are having at the moment. So to wrap it up, these are all the factors and influences that could influence your management thought, from economic up to the global factors. The next one, we are going to look into chronological development of management thought. If we look at the chronological development, it started from the late 19th century. We start off with the classical perspective, and then we move into the behavioral perspective, and then quantitative perspective, and then system perspective and contingency perspective. And the era, the technological, the environmental, the political situation would influence in terms of each of these perspectives. Let us look at the classical perspective first. This is the formal and oldest viewpoints of management. And then there are three subfields under the classical perspective. The first one, we have the scientific management that tends to focus on the productivity of the individual workers. We can try to imagine late 19th century, the main productivity of the people of the country at the moment is factory production wise, and so that's why they focus on the productivity of the individual. And then the second element is the administrative management, tends to focus on the managed functions of management. Henry Fayol is among the father of this administrative management. And then we have the bureaucratic management, tends to focus on the overall organizational systems. We talk about the simple organizational structure. During this time, they have already developed the organizational structure. So we go to the scientific element first, which is this one. The scientific element is by the most famous one is the Frederick Taylor. The three main focus area is task performance, supervision, and motivation. And during that time, they focus on how to improve the productivity. So they tend to give be very focused on the task performance. Every day you will be given like a note in terms of what are the things that you need to do. And then the supervision is very, very important. The importance of the line leader, superior, and whatnot. And then the most importantly on how you are going to motivate your employees to increase their productivity and productivity. These are another famous names that emerged during the scientific management: Frank Gilbreth and also Lillian Gilbreth. You guys can read this on your own later on. And then we have administrative management, developed, introduced by Henry Fayol, and up until 1925. He was the first one that recognized that successful managers had to understand the basic managerial functions, and he had developed and introduced these 14 administrative management, the general principles that some of these are still being implemented and discussed in today's management courses, management subject, or even in the practice. For example, in terms of the division of work, esprit de corps, and we talk about scala chain, centralization. So all of those are still being discussed today in today's environment. And we also talk about bureaucratic management, focus on the overall organizational system. Is based upon firm's rule. During this time, they talk about having clearly identified firm's rule, policies and procedures, a clear division of labor, as well as a fixed hierarchy. The next one, we are going into the non-classical management approach. I will go very briefly on some of these approaches. The first non-classical management approach that we are going to discuss is on behavioral perspective. So people start to understand that we need to acknowledge the importance of human behavior. Whereas at the classical perspective, it is more focused towards on the rational behavior. The behavioral perspective acknowledges the importance of human behavior in shaping the management style, and we are going to look into at least one of the example under this behavioral perspective. For example, Douglas McGregor proposed theory X and theory Y. Theory X managers perceive that their subordinates have an inherent dislike of work and will avoid it if at all possible. Cost, and then theory Y managers perceive that their subordinates enjoy work and that they will gain satisfaction from performing their jobs, and this will explain why our managers act the way that they do. Some of them are very strict. They tend to come to us and check on us every time, and some of our managers are very loose. They let you work at your own pace. They let you enjoy the work that you are doing. They give you enough room. They give you enough support because they are under the theory Y managers. So they have different way of managing and behaving. The next perspective is the system perspective. It is a belief or an approach to problem solving that is based on understanding of the basic structure of a system. During this time, people start to realize that in order for us to develop an output, it must involve a series of continuous process. It must come from an input stage, and there would be some transformational processes that might be involved before we can get into the outputs. And then people start to focus on what is the most important thing in terms of the input, what is the most important area to ensure that the end product would be of high quality, and then what are the important elements at the output stage. So this is the system perspective. And the last one is the contingency approach, in this approach we start to believe that there is no one best approach to management for all situations. The contingency perspective believes that managers are responsible for determining which managerial approach is likely to be most effective in a given situation. This requires manager to identify the key contingency in a given situation. So I reckon you can review and study the rest of the notes on your own. So we are approaching the end of the slide already. So millions saw the apple fall, but Newton asked why. So maybe we need to be among those who keep on asking why and why. Maybe perhaps that could help us to become a better person, inshallah. So thank you.